Hi, what's up everyone?
Hi.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hey. Does everybody have water, coffee, and all the things that you need? Great. So today we're going to talk about building a generous business, and the way that I want to get this started is just by giving us a chance to meet each other and connect a little bit. Plus, I need to know a little bit about you and your goals to get a sense of what's going to be most helpful. This is a presentation that I give often, and I usually tailor it a little bit to the audience. But let's just start with a little bit of context. So the purpose of this framework is that if in this workshop, in the 40 minutes or so that we have, what I'd like to be able to do is show you a framework for getting leads, clients, recurring revenue without a lot of promotion and hustle. So basically, what we want is we want to have clients who understand our value and aren't irritating us in all the different ways that can be. So just a show of hands, who here works with clients? Awesome. Cool. And if you have a job, then your boss is basically your client. So you can so you can, if you think about it that way, that's a kind of reframe that gives you a little bit more control in the situation. And one of the things that's really interesting about being designers, or just in the kind of world of design and marketing, is that our job is to find the gaps, is to improve things, to make things better. And the really cool thing about working with clients and having our own business is that we get to apply that same kind of problem-solving focus to our own process, to our own business. And I have to say something about the word generous in here, because generosity means boundaries. Because, and maybe some of you have had a similar experience, I've done a lot of pro bono work or discounted work or work for friends and family, and they do not appreciate the work sometimes, because if it's free, if they don't have any skin in the game, it can actually work against even their own needs. If they don't appreciate it, if they don't value it, well, let's just say I built a website for a community center that was exactly what they needed based on some detailed discovery process and everything. But they never once logged in and made any changes. It started to get out of date. They didn't have anybody to maintain it because they didn't understand that there was a cost involved in that, because I didn't set them up to understand that. And eventually they were like, this is too complicated, we don't like it, we're gonna switch to a Squarespace site that a volunteer is gonna make. And their new website was terrible, and they also never even utilized a lot of the features that they had initially needed. And it's so disempowering. It's for me, it's why would I do this? And it's hard to keep being generous if you get burned, or you work with people who just don't see the value. So generosity is a lot about boundaries, and one of the ways that we can communicate boundaries in ways that work really effectively is by designing our process really well. This is the first time I'm using this analogy, so let me know how it lands. But I feel like a restaurant, especially a fancy restaurant, they don't need to have the rules on the wall that say, no shouting, no throwing food. It's part of the process. You walk in, you're greeted, you're seated, you're given a menu. The process is all there, it's all implied, and it creates the conditions for people to respect and understand the value of the experience. So creating an experience is one of the ways to both be generous and have boundaries. So we can unpack a little bit of that as we go on, because part of this is having a business model that communicates those types of boundaries and those types of processes. So All right, I want people to just have a chance to meet each other. So just really quick, let's all just turn to somebody near you. You're in a group of 3, so you 3 can all talk to each other. But just really quick introductions. I'm gonna give you all, this is gonna beep in 2 minutes. So just introduce yourselves and share a little bit about what kind of service you offer.
Yeah. So I am Joe. Oh, nice. Yeah, so we have 3 locations. Yeah. It's so volatile. You can't go into started creating stuff in the nobody does software. I do website and I can do recording. Website process them all. Digital presence. I just don't know.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, challenge that.
The clients I work for now are killing it. So actually, it's funny. The one day I ran it as the stop. It's to promote people who go to going and getting yeah. So, especially it's all like service. He works at having something completely stage immediately try to like stuff like that and be like, hey, give me I do the same story.
Yeah, I saw that.
All people come by, rolling up and hard ground.
Prior to that, it was that
And I didn't like,
no, they're treated in-house.
now we're good. And I was like, that's basically my job. Or that how much they do. And then we go yeah, which is it is.
What type of fashion do you do?
1 more minute.
I do like luxury. But it's working out. Yeah, so we should be probably launching our ready-to-wear, hopefully, we should give out first.
So you have to buy inventory, right?
Yeah, I had to buy it. Well, it's not designed, so I have to buy it.
All right.
Now getting
Do you guys do like a printify or anything like that?
All right, folks, we're gonna bring it back together now.
What do you use for your e-commerce?
And I'm gonna share. All right, clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. All right, that worked. Sweet. Yeah, great. So I'm glad you all had a chance to meet somebody new. That's awesome. And just a little bit about me and why I'm up here. My name is Ryan. I'm 41. I might be 42 because I stopped counting when anyway, because I'm a dad and I have a 5-year-old. I am an award-winning flat-foot dancer. I'm competing in old-time music, flat-foot dancing at Fiddler's conventions. Let's see, the most boring thing about me is whenever I travel, I always eat diner breakfast. Like I order the exact same thing. I don't even have to look at a menu. And I started as a web designer primarily, just building websites, self-taught. The reason I started doing that was because, well, I actually had sworn off technology completely. I was living in an off-grid cabin, and my neighbors who ran a small cider business had hired me to sell their cider in Union Square in New York City. So being like rural, out in the country, going to New York City, waking up at 6 in the morning in Union Square in the back of a truck and setting up, it was a totally bizarre experience. But what I learned selling cider in New York City was that if I stand there with a bunch of cider, people think of cider, hard cider, they think of woodchuck, Angry Orchard kind of stuff. So this cider is $25 a bottle, champagne method, fermented, special grown heritage cider apples from upstate New York. Nobody wanted or understood it unless they learned about it. And to stand there and sell cider was really a project of educating and inviting people in and creating an experience for them. And when I had a group of people standing around tasting and I was talking about the cider, basically putting on a bit of a production, it would just go. We'd sell it. And we would build a whole group of people that were really into it. Restaurants that their chefs would come down to the market to pick up high quality chicken and from the local farms in Hudson Market or Hudson Valley. They would get the cider and then they would start serving it in their restaurant. So now we're delivering the cider to these different restaurants at the same time as we're coming down to the market. And I realized, this ties into the website, I promise. I realized when I was living there that nobody else, my friends at the farm, nobody else who worked at the business knew anything about websites. And I just knew a lot about computers because I played video games so much to the point where I swore off technology completely and moved into an off-grid cabin. But I was the only one who knew how to do it. So, reluctant hero me stepped up and built them a website. But it was by making the website educational, which is something that I learned from selling cider at the market, and going into all the details, they went from being dependent on a distributor to having a direct relationship with hundreds of customers and dropping the distributor and having a cider club with recurring revenue. So there was this magical moment of, wow, this website stuff is really powerful. And giving people a direct connection with their customers through email marketing primarily was really, really powerful. They didn't have to hustle as hard or promote themselves as much and work with the same games that the other small businesses were dealing with. And then I started taking on a couple of clients. I thought, this is cool, but I had no idea how to do it. So I had only podcasts and online courses to teach me more about building websites, more about marketing, and more about having a business. And what eventually happened is I replaced my full-time job income and just went full-time into this. And I started an agency called Maple Creative. And because I love online courses so much, because I got so much value that made this whole world accessible to me, I started to work with course creators, and that became my niche. So today, I primarily build websites for online course creators. And I also now work on their operations and their marketing as well, because that starts to become a holistic business model. So what I feel really proud of is that I was able to transform my business from projects to recurring revenue. And having the recurring revenue in place is where I was able to basically start having more boundaries around who I wanted to work with, building a waiting list of leads so that I don't have to be out there trying to get new projects. I'm not worried about hard times as much because I have more resilience, more flexibility because of the recurring revenue model. So yeah, I'm excited to share that because I don't typically get to teach this kind of stuff to other designers. So yeah, it's really exciting. I loved meeting people so far at this event, and I love building my network. And in a lot of ways, I have more questions than answers, but what I have learned to do is to map things out. Because I think what's important is that we turn our unknowns into known unknowns. So that's both something that we're going to do in this workshop, but also the type of thing that you could do with clients to earn their trust and to help them see the value of your work, is helping them map it out. Because maps are all about knowing, like you are here, right? So first you figure out where you are, and this is the same thing if you're doing this with a client as part of a discovery process. It's all about understanding where they are and then where do they want to go. So that could be their, objective. And then you could get into the whole like objectives and key results thing. So how do you know that the project was done? How do you know it was a success? So just getting really, really clear on that. And then part of what makes a map really cool is that there's all these different ways to get there. And one of them might be, oops, don't go that way, because there's a false solution, right? We could call it like we know that this doesn't work because we've been around the block a couple times, so we're gonna let you know about that. But the point about a map is that you don't know everything. You just know where you are, and you kind of know, like, this is a park. You've never been there, but you know it's a park, right? Over here it's downtown, over here's a neighborhood. So you can get a sense of what the opportunities are, what the barriers are, without necessarily needing to know everything. And so when you give your clients a map, when you create a map for yourself, you get perspective. And anyone here read the book Getting Things Done or know about David Allen? Oh, I'm surprised. Oh my gosh. Okay, so everybody, now you have like an awesome book recommendation. So GTD, Getting Things Done. It's just a book around personal productivity, really, I guess is how it might be described. But what he talks about, he says perspective is the most valuable commodity on the planet, basically. It's like if you can give your clients perspective, they will feel seen, they'll understand you, they'll understand opportunities, they'll be able to make decisions. And he wrote that back in, I don't know, it's an older book, I don't know exactly when, but a while ago. Now I think perspective is more valuable than ever because knowledge is not as important right now because we don't have a knowledge problem. We have lots of knowledge gaps, but we have so many tools that can fill those gaps. But nothing can replace your perspective that comes from the experiences that you've had in your life, the mistakes you've made, the things that you've seen, the people that you know. Like all of those things are actually so important. So giving clients perspective early on is one of the most important ways to earn their trust. It's also just a generous thing to do. You can do that at very low cost, and you can also do it in a way that you're learning. So can anybody think of an example of this just from your own work? Like what's an example of when you've given somebody perspective or that you weave this sort of concept into a creative project? It's one example.
I have a client who has been in business for decades, and he has so many things, interviews, YouTube videos and things like that, and he just wanted a one-page site, and I said, we can make a blog out of this. And I've created recurring revenue for myself. I had him give me a list of all of his things, and every other week I roll out a blog post for him.
Nice. So that was an opportunity that he didn't necessarily know existed. Yeah. Another example, yeah.
I have a 1 hour kind of power hour offering that I work with clients on, and most of the time it's just a clarity, like they need another set of eyes to give them that perspective because they're too close to it, whatever the thing is. So
totally.
Sometimes that's all they need.
Yeah, absolutely. Has anybody else had that experience where you're working with a client and you realize like actually part of what they seem to be getting value from is just that you're listening to them, you're not necessarily in their immediate like work environment, so they get to work out ideas with you that they don't necessarily always get to work out. Yeah. That's actually one of the things that I find so fascinating is a lot of leaders, a lot of like executive directors and CEOs and things like that, they need thought partners because it's kind of risky if you're a leader to just start spitballing ideas to your team, because people will take it literally and they'll start working on bad ideas because they think, oh, everything that they say is like, you know, a decision or it's a good idea. And it's incredibly isolating also to be in that position where you don't really have someone to just kick ideas around with. And some people, you know, have that through their friends and their network, but there's actually a lot of people who don't, and it's amazing how, yeah. Is there one more example of anyone who does like any kind of discovery process that helps define the work, give perspective? Yeah.
My work is different. I'm not specifically a web designer, but I do design my own website, and I'm a fashion designer. So
Fashion.
yeah, so when I get customers and they want like custom dresses and stuff, I have to sit down with them and show them fabrics and help them discover what costs, what doesn't, or if they get this. So I have to help them lead. They come with a design they want, and I have to help them get there by showing them the costs and help them build a budget.
Right, right. People don't know how much stuff should cost, and they don't know what, they don't necessarily know how to understand the return on investment of something either. They have a lot of questions before they can make a decision. Cost, ROI, what to expect, what's the process, schedule. There's so many different factors, and they need that. And there can be a dynamic a lot where we get frustrated with clients who are like over demanding or don't understand things, or and a lot of that is because they have unanswered questions. It makes them nervous, and when somebody shows up with like, here's the process, this is exactly how it's going to go, this is the way I do it, these are the terms, it's almost like they're comforted by that. They're like, oh, okay, this is the real deal. It also, if they might not be the person you're talking to might not be the decision maker. So they might have a boss that they need to impress, and what the decision they're actually trying to make is, who can I hire that has a website or some other collateral material that when my boss looks at it, they're like, oh yeah, this is legit. So there's so many interesting factors there. So what I want to talk about, I have all my cards right here to help me get into it, but what I'm really interested in next is to hear about a project that you've worked on that feels really fulfilling to you. So you've already shared a little bit with somebody what kind of work that you do, but now I want everyone to just take a moment and share about a project that you worked on that was fulfilling. And it doesn't have to be a project that you got paid for either. It could be a side project or just something that you're passionate about. But let's take 2 minutes and do that. All right, go. Yeah.
Charity work or?
Yeah. It could be, but I look at it as like a business that helps people even if they're not a good fit. So maybe for one example would be like a website. Your website is like educational, helps people.
So like providing value.
Yeah, providing value. So instead of promotion, you're giving value. So earning trust through value.
If I'm like just trying to make the connection.
Yep. Yeah. I'm sure you kind of get the model. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Create a website that maybe was more
We actually work with
Maybe it's just I mean, we do a lot on charitable giving and community engagement. It's one of our core policies. So our company model is filtering through seen as so the car, the client, the company, the community. So we like to focus on every single day it's the car, the company, and the client. Three seems to always hit, but we like to do a lot of things for making sure that we're a presence in the community and we're helping out people who need us money. We're a for-profit business, so I do think it's for us part of our responsibility to turn around and do these for our community. So 100%. If you take care of the community should take care of you, and vice versa. So we do a lot of tuition for our college and things like that. We do a lot of cleanups where we have a team together, and then it's required every single month. Each manager has to go everywhere. So it's based upon the manager's discretion. But like recently we had a mom come in, she bought a car for her son. It was one of those 5-year pay-here locks, and they needed $5,000 for work. It wasn't safe, so the manager was like, hey, this is on the house. So that's not something we do a lot. We like to advertise. Like, one of the things that I can struggle with was initially she did that stuff not promoting it.
Right. Nobody knows about it.
I would feel very guilty if we always have 2 or 3 people who see that content.
Right.
I know like, oh, they always said this before.
Well, yeah.
It's always passing.
Let's bring it back together now. Just take a moment and wrap it up. And all right. So what I want to just hear, like, what was the project and what about it was fulfilling? So, all right, we're coming back together. So what was the project and what about it was fulfilling? So you raise your hand.
I do have a daytime job with National Fuel, and somehow I married my fashion design with the utility company and sponsored a prom dress giveaway for the underprovided communities. And so we did a huge prom dress giveaway, and I made one free dress for a girl. It was over the news, Channel 2 it was Melissa Holmes, and it was on the news a couple of times. And then I did another one again the year after, and was with Melissa Holmes. I haven't done one this year, but I do plan on bringing it back.
Nice. So you did a collaboration and a giveaway, and people probably learned that you were a fashion designer as a result, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah. What's another example? Anyone in the back?
So, Justin with Care Team, we're a national healthcare staffing agency. We works with Helm, and they build websites and apps. They do more than that. They actually helped out our company, and still do. And what we were talking about was, when we started working on our project together, is that working with their team, what we kind of thought what we wanted or needed, then working through it with experts, that we were able to kind of work through that discovery process, and then realize that, like, maybe it's not quite that, maybe there's a little bit more over here, and they would bring up to us, maybe we need to do a survey, or maybe we need to think more deeply about this, talk to some of the employees, kind of work through it, and we continue that today, so it's nice to have a company that you can bounce ideas off of because they're experts, and to work through the process together.
Right. So it was fulfilling. You're talking about the experience was really fulfilling. You felt like
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
you know, we're learning a lot. Actually, the fulfilling part too is you usually have to handle a lot of the negative stuff that happens.
Yeah.
So working on something that was a lot more fun and positive, and the interactions were great, but they really helped our company out. You know, it was fulfilling that it helped our company grow.
Cool. And this is a totally different question, but one that instead of discussing, we'll just list a few things. But like a lot of you raised your hand when I asked if you worked with clients. So what are some pet peeves that you have when you work with clients that make a project not fulfilling? Yeah, see, this is an easy one, isn't it? Yeah.
I've had clients try to lowball me after already agreeing to prices.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
an excuse as to why they can't pay me for my work after it's done.
Oh my God. Yeah. After the fact, right? Yeah. Another one.
They can't say anything for it because it's not.
I was just gonna say a lack of appreciation for the amount of time it takes to do things. You know, when they want something changed, it's like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem.
And how do they show that lack of appreciation? Like
Well,
what's
it's like,
a
can you just change that really quick?
yeah.
Never really quick.
Or this should be easy. Just
Yeah. Can you
I have a
get
really
to me in
easy
20
request for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I say something from the opposite side? Because
Yeah.
I'm the client. So
Uh-oh.
I'm a
Okay.
business owner, right? No, I'm here because of that reason.
Yeah.
So like I will ask like, hey, can I do this? I can hear it in the tone of the voice. It's like, hey, can you just move this button? And they'll be like, yeah. And I'm like, how much did I just ask you to do? And they're like, it's 10 hours worth of work. And I'm like, no, that's outrageous. I'm not gonna ask that then, right? But on our side as a client, we have so many people trying to sell to us or to me.
Right.
I'll hear, oh yeah, whoever did this did a crap job. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
gee, like I can't. That's the trust that I had, and
Yeah.
then you'll end up switching companies or changing something. It's all about perspective. Whereas I'm an automotive repair, so every single time you get a new client, they fired their previous mechanic before they got to me. And there's a massive education piece that we have to have with our service and our repair at the same exact time.
Right.
Like, because automotive repair for most people, you know, I realize I can't say, hey, your brakes are 2 millimeters, because that might not mean anything to
Right.
you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right, so I have to explain it in a more layman's terms, but for designers, I 100% understand like the agreeing to the price. I guarantee you that person went to someone else and they undercut the price is probably what happened.
Yeah. Their perspective is contaminated in some way.
And that's why I'm here, is
Yeah.
to get the other side of the whole conversation.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
small business, I don't have a marketing person.
Yeah. And example from you?
Sense of urgency. So,
Yeah.
you know, it could be 11 o'clock at night and they're like, we need this fixed. And I'm like, hey, I'm asleep.
Yeah. Text
Like,
messages.
text messages. And then just the impatience with it of,
Yep.
hey, we need this fixed tomorrow. And it's like, I have other clients.
Yeah. Yep.
I was gonna say not having room for clarity, kind of being a bottleneck.
Right. Being a bottleneck. Yeah. Clients being a bottleneck. Who has clients that are bottlenecking right now? Yeah. Yeah.
Like I need to speak to you, we need to schedule a time to go over, I don't have time, just send me an email. But there's no room for clarity, there's no room for discussion. But then at the end result, there's, oh, that's not what I wanted.
Got it. Get that.
Yeah. So a couple more. Yeah.
I'll just say not implementing your recommendations.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll just write not taking advice because I don't know how to spell implementing on the fly. Yeah.
Just going off of his too is the language barrier. Like when you were talking about, you know, brake pads and things like that. Like there's a language barrier in tech too, where you're sitting
Right.
here and you're going, okay, yeah, I just need to fix this, and they have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got so many clicks. What does that mean? No idea.
Yeah.
As a copywriter, the value of the copy itself, especially up against AI, is
Yeah.
a challenge.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. So what this all demonstrates some kind of lack of perspective or lack of understanding from a client, and it also is it's easier to make this list. If I said, what are your values? Like, what are some of your top values that you look for in a client to know that it's a good fit? That takes a longer time to figure out. But if you can get clear about the things that just really piss you off. The other thing we could talk about is like, what are your pet peeves around like other people in your industry, other copywriters, other web designers, other fashion designers, and like what just drives you crazy about them? Like, what are they doing that's harming the industry, that's bad for clients, bad for and what that does is it helps surface like, what are your values? What are the boundaries that you need to have? Like, how can you design your business to uphold those values? There's an incredible book called What Works by Tara McMullen, where she writes about a practice orientation as opposed to an achievement orientation. So a practice orientation is a way of looking at goal setting and success as, how do I want to feel? Like, what are the values that are important to me? And then what activities in my day-to-day life, in my work, uphold those values? Because that's the kind of thing that no matter where you are in your journey, you can actually start to experience the kind of success in yourself just by upholding the things that are really important to you, because you can start practicing that on a regular basis. You can start holding those standards. And whereas an achievement orientation might feel a little bit more like, well, I can't experience that until I achieve A, B, and C, something like that. But what I want to say is that the idea of building a generous business, one that attracts the best clients, and where you're doing the work that's really fulfilling to you, and earning recurring revenue, which we'll get to, I promise, in just a moment. A lot of it is about getting clear on what is fulfilling and what types of clients how are you going to attract them? And so the simple answer to this is that you map out your business model in 3 areas of focus. Growth is the marketing side of things. It's where you're working on refining this area so that you're attracting the right people. And the offers, or the fulfillment side of things, is all about figuring out what services you offer and designing that in a way that is aligning and fulfilling, and also really optimized around like your unique talents, like not trying to offer everything, but offering the piece that's really meaningful for you. And then the recurring revenue part is something that you can build both into your offers, but also into your operations. So you can have a process for how you fulfill your projects that is set up with some automation, just to keep things a little bit simpler on the business admin side of things. So this is a really cool framework for building a business, because you can really break this down. In fact, you can build an organization chart, even if it's just one person. You can build a chart of like all the hats that you have to wear in running a business. And even if it is you doing all those things, when you're at a point where you're starting to hire people to help, you're like, oh, well, maybe this part that is difficult or frustrating or that I tend to procrastinate on, that's the part that you can hand off first. And you've defined it because you've built a model around it. So the way that it ties into this concept of generosity and perspective is to create a model of offers that helps move your client through the stages of awareness. So anybody here in marketing, you do copywriting, so you know about the stages of awareness, right? Does anyone else know about this? Yeah, great. So it's like you start with, I'm gonna do it really simplified, but there's problem aware. That's like, oh, I have a headache. Like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And there's solution aware. And then there's your specific solution aware, and you might say product aware or something like that. So I'm just gonna write your solution aware. And what makes this complicated is that people have a problem, but there's all these like, I wish I had like a red marker or something, but there's all these like false solutions that are out there. All these like tactics and schemes and products and stuff like that. And one of the easiest way, if you want just like short-term, you know, if your business model is all about short-term gains and not thinking about the long run, is to scam people basically. And one of the easiest ways to scam people is to tell them how easy something is when it's not easy, right? But it's also, but you can also make things easy, which is another way of providing a service. That could also be described as just like hospitality, just making things easeful, making them flow. So don't promise ease if it's not easy, because that's going to set people up for wanting it to be cheaper, faster, you know, disappointed, all that kind of stuff. But instead, make it easier. So the generous business part is really about using education more than promotion. Because education and giving people perspective is the kind of thing that people will share with each other. But people need to understand, like, you can list out some of the pet peeves within your industry, the things that you can't stand about other copywriters or other you know, website platforms or web designers. And you can actually use those as educational content. So writing about the top mistakes people make when hiring a web designer is a great option. I mean, that's a pretty easy article to write because, again, it's easier to think about the pet peeves than it is the other stuff. But the generous business is helping people understand the problem that they have. So helping them put that into context, helping them understand all the different solutions, not just yours. Because if you're showing all the solutions, not just your solution, and you're giving them the map, then they trust you more because it doesn't look like you're just trying to get a sale. You're showing them that, like, look, I might not be the best fit for you, but I care about you and I want you to be successful, so let's talk about all the different solutions. Let's put it into context. But that also sets you up really well to be like, look, this is why I created this solution, because for this type of client, and then of course you describe your ideal client, a lot of those other solutions just aren't serving a couple specific things that I do. And here, that's why I created it this way. So by guiding them through the process, you get to earn their trust and you get to establish your value. And you're gonna be reducing a lot of these problems along the way. And really it's that what we're experiencing here is, I don't know if you've ever seen the comic of like the people pushing the cart with like the square, you know, and I'm not a very good drawer, so this is a person pulling something, and this person is like, hey, we've got a wheel, it's really great, and this person's like, no way, we don't have time for that. It's like, it's really frustrating, but that's what's happening all the time. There's always like all these new ways of doing things, and if you're designers, you're probably dabbling in all kinds of things. You're testing different software, sometimes to your own, you know, sometimes it's frustrating to just be pulled in so many directions, but that's part of our craft, is being aware of opportunities and understanding the bigger map. So yeah, we gotta figure out how to turn the things that drive us crazy into process that helps us attract the best fit clients. And we could go in so many directions about how to do all these different things and like how to optimize the way that you introduce yourself and getting clear about the type of people that you serve so you can describe them. But the way that I think we can do it the simplest is by, I'm gonna erase this part. I think the way that you can do it the simplest is actually in thinking about your own website, because it's the reason that I think websites are so amazing is because websites are basically a canvas for figuring this stuff out, because this is the place where you get to express your offers, you get to educate people, you get to define your process, you get to explain it. So the question is about what's the minimum viable website to run the type of business that you want. Because you can create another website. You don't have to completely destroy your own business to try out a new thing or launch a new service or test out a new way of presenting yourself. So you could start building something on the side that starts to, to test out a concept, and maybe it ends up replacing the other thing. But websites are just this great way to play around with what we are, what we do. So a minimum viable website is also a way to help you, just that framing, that way of understanding websites can be helpful when working with clients, because then you can scope things out based on that. You can be like, well, the minimum viable way to achieve your goal is this, and these other things require this. So now you're kind of building out your packages, but you're also staying super focused on what's going to create some kind of impact for them or move them forward. So in terms of thinking about offers and recurring revenue, the operations side of things and attracting people, I feel like we covered the attraction as much as we could in a short amount of time. There's so much more there. But let's just say that that's implied now, because we're going to be communicating offers. So there's a model for how you can design your offers and how you can communicate them that's based on some of this stage of awareness. So what you have here is an axis of commitment. So how much commitment something requires. And here would be basically awareness or trust. So then what you can do is you could take this, and this works for clients too. If you're helping clients build a website around their offers, this is an amazing exercise to guide them through as part of a discovery process, because it really shows them that you understand strategy. Because the question is, for the people coming to your website, now that we've defined who the ideal client is, for me it'd be like online course creators, what's the offer that you can present? There's a green marker somewhere. There's green marks on here.
There's a blue one right there.
This is it. The blue one's not doing it for me. It's not working. Well, it actually is not working. Okay, yeah. So the classic example that you've probably seen or built is, a lead magnet. So can someone describe what a lead magnet is on a website? Yeah.
It can be like a freebie that you offer, so someone wants a free trial of something potentially, or even just a printout download guide to something.
It's your loss leader.
Yeah. You said loss leader?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's great. So that's another way of framing it too, because people come to a website, you don't have something for them to sign up for, you don't see them ever again. There's no way to establish connection. And you're talking about making sure that that gives value, right? Because that's the opportunity to give value. And we can all think of ways that this goes horribly wrong too. And people are pretty jaded about it. People will come to me and say, I don't want any sign up on my website. I feel guilty sending emails because I hate when I get emails. And I'm like, you're just not experiencing this in a way that's helpful, because guess what? You signed up for my lead magnet. Like, what? It's because mine is book a call with me.
Right.
And because that is really effective for a service-based business, is book a call with me. And of course you have to optimize that. You don't want to just get random calls. So you got to have a couple questions on the booking form to add a little friction, but also figure out a way to run those calls so that they generate value for me too, even if it's not a good fit. So I'm learning something about them, I'm learning how they talk about their problems. I'm recording it and building like a nice little bank of transcripts that I can query. But yeah, lead magnets. So what's this do on the stage of awareness? It helps people get problem aware or problem and solution aware. But one of the ways that you can make them problem aware and help them navigate their map is by showing them that there's all these false solutions too. And why are they false solutions? What could go wrong if you choose one of these that isn't actually a good fit for you? And you don't have to just say everything else is bad, my stuff is good. You say, it's all about understanding what's a fit for you. And you can assume that this is out there, it's a fit for somebody, but they might have totally different goals than you. So tell me about your goals, right? So now you're building a connection, you're building a relationship with that person so that they now, their level of commitment, what they're willing to commit to starts to go up higher. And so lead magnets should always be building a waiting list. And there's some incredible content out there. A guy named Daniel Priestley he talks about, basically how to build waiting lists and use like kind of supply-demand tension as a creative in just positioning like more premium products. Premium services. And if you look up Daniel Priestley, it's got a great interview with Chris Do on the Future podcast, and it's awesome. It's all about, I have 500 people on my email list, something along those lines, and 100 or so of them that have expressed interest in services. So I can say I have 100 people on my waiting list right now. I'm booked until next year. But I'd love to talk to you because I have this service. It's $5,000 a month, and I'm just getting a sense of what problems you might have, and I've nothing to offer you right now. But if you're interested, I can add you to that list for next year when a spot opens. And that type of approach to a client shows them I'm in demand. It puts a price. It's not intimidating because I'm not telling them they need to make any decisions whatsoever. And it's planting this little seed. And then, next year, they might even be like, hey, do you have an opening? We've been thinking about this. And they had this discovery call with me where they feel seen, they understand the map. And nobody else is doing it like that for them. Everybody else wants to sell them a service right away. And I'm basically interviewing them and saying, if and when we might be able to work together, by the way, I spend a good amount of my time just researching and understanding your problems. So it's like this kind of delayed growth approach. I work back to the apple cider metaphor. I work in the orchards, I prune the trees. And when you're pruning trees, you have to think like into the future because you're making these big cuts and decisions that play out over time. And no matter where, if your business model is like you're trying to get a sale to fill a gap next month, or if you're filling a gap next year, what happens is it just looks like this. It's just time changes a little bit. But to get out of the hustle, we just need to not be doing this. So as much as possible, if you're in this cycle, because a lot of us are just, this is how it usually is when you're starting, but start planting these seeds anyway, because then later you'll be pretty happy when those people are wanting to work with you. But you can also plant those seeds very low stakes. You can float ideas that you haven't even formed yet. You can say, I have this new service, it's gonna be, put out a price that you're kind of uncomfortable with, and you just never know. It's amazing how it can come back around. But the key here, because we're running out of time, is this is where you figure out your signature offer. And your signature offer is the thing that takes the highest commitment and requires the highest level of awareness. And then you kind of build your ladder in between. And one of the most effective ways to do this is to do paid discovery. So discovery used to be part of like just a project. I'd get a project, I'd write a proposal, I'd get an accepted proposal for a new website design. And discovery would be like the first couple weeks. But now I say, well, I do road mapping projects where we actually map out the whole website, we do some research. Then, if it's a good fit, we'll continue, and you can apply that price to the larger scope. If it's not a good fit, you have this very detailed outline strategy document you can bring to any designer that is a good fit for your project. But it would be very high risk to allow anybody to propose a project to you that they have not fully mapped out whether they're capable to do it. So now they are like, oh, all these other people that are pitching projects to me, this feels high risk. Risk is not something clients want to take on when they're investing $20,000 to $50,000 into a project. So having your lead magnet lead into paid discovery is a very effective model for design or creative services. Because again, it shows them that you are listening, that you care, that you can be trusted, that you're guiding them, and it's generous. So whether it's being generous with the people that aren't paying you through some kind of free lead magnet, discovery calls, live events, webinars, trainings, that helps them understand the situation, which of course is building trust and making you an authority in your field, or going up and saying, look, before we commit to any bigger projects, we're gonna really map this out with you, and we're gonna bring in all the stakeholders, and we're gonna make sure that we understand what success looks like. That, just like how you can have a process, at a restaurant where you create an environment, you create an experience for people, and it sets the tone, it sets the boundaries. You can mitigate all this annoying stuff by taking that approach. And so a minimum viable website for you, for any service provider, is primarily this. And then explaining some of this. But primarily this is the minimum viable website. And then as you expand, you kind of expand more content that improves awareness. And it eventually leads to more like this. And the recurring revenue part is really simple because we're wrapping up. Instead of selling projects, people have to make a decision, a commitment. Committing to something that's recurring is still carries some of the same weight, and that's just the way to do it. There's a lot. If you look it up and just explore some more resources on that, you'll find a lot of good advice and models. But primarily for me, for Maple Creative, we bring people into a website care plan, and then we turn their strategy into a retainer that is a strategic, like a content advisor type retainer. So that's the thought partnership where I can charge, $1,000 a month to just be available for calls whenever with these clients, just to talk through their ideas. But I can say $1,000 a month, that's $12,000. You pay your content, your team, your communications staff person, a salary, and guess what? If they aren't working with 100 other similar clients, so they don't have the perspective. Give your team perspective by having us on retainer to just talk to them as a resource. It's amazing what can be done with something just that simple. So yeah, being a designer means looking for the gaps, making things better. Do it for yourself in the way that you design your business, and then do that for your clients. Help them understand what it looks like, what better looks like, and they will trust you and want to work with you on a regular basis. So yeah, thank you so much. I don't have a business card, but I have an email address and an email list. So I do workshops every Wednesday on this topic online. So I'd be happy to stay connected with all of you.